All right, welcome to Operatory Empires, the show where we talk to business-minded dentists. Today we have the founder and CEO of Vision Dental Partners, over 17,000 followers on LinkedIn, 15,000 on TikTok. He has 9 practices that do over $14 million per year. They're in Indiana and South Carolina now, but Florida and Nevada soon, and I'm sure the rest of the country. Dr. Brad Hughes, how are you doing today?
Good. Good to be here, man. Yeah, yeah, you've done your homework to know where we have signed LOIs. So, kudos to you, my friend. And yeah, like looking great intro. Looking forward to expanding into a couple different states here. People will say, "Why are you doing that? Nevada's nowhere near where you're at." Well, we're looking for areas that are recruitable, where people want to live. And those are the spots that we're moving into right now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Actually, not that's not what I was thinking, but I was curious because I know a lot of dentists, at least that I've talked to, they start in one area, like for you, Indiana, and then they kind of just branch out from there because they kind of know it best. So why did you go state to state? Is it because of the recruitability?
Yeah, it's got to be recruitability. I love Indiana. Indiana's fantastic. It's where I grew up. I spent 37 years of my life there. We've been in South Carolina for 8. Um, but let's be honest, like Fort Wayne, Indiana is not the hotbed of like sexiness. I mean, I love it there because I grew up there, but it's hard to get somebody that grew up in Tennessee to go, yeah, let's go do some freaking dentistry in Fort Wayne, right? Like, it's just like if you grew up there or you have a partner or spouse or somebody grew up there, you have some affiliation, it's an area that you're going to move back to. Otherwise, lifestyle's just different now. Like, when my dad was practicing, you had a lot of people that said, the mantra was work where you can make money and vacation where you want to live. That's not the way this game is played anymore. People are moving into more metro areas. They're living wherever the hell they want to live, and they're figuring out that you can kind of do dentistry wherever. So that's where we've got to be.
Yeah, my mom just moved to Florida a couple years ago for her job. So I've been going down there. I'm in Maryland now, which I've been grew up in, and I'm like I could really see myself going down there instead of staying up here in the winters.
You're proving my point, my man.
Exactly. So you started at your dad's practice. You're a third generation dentist. Did you ever think when you were scaling that practice up, maybe to just stick with one practice because you could get it really profitable? Or did you always want to, like, was it worth the stress to expand practices?
Good question. Did I? The short answer to this, and some people will understand this and some people will not. Yes, I tripled that practice. We were doing nearly $4 million out of that practice in Leo, Indiana. It was a great practice. I was a big part of that community, but I wasn't fulfilled with that. Because, at the end of the day, like, yes, we had great margins. It was a wonderful practice. I loved being in that community. I loved the team we built. I love the patients. When I'm up there, I still see some of those patients when I'm in that practice coaching or running a meeting. Somebody comes in and, I'm getting hugs. And I mean, I haven't practiced there I think the last patient I saw there was probably 7 years ago. We've been down here 8 years full time. So my heart is still in that place, but my fulfillment was I need to go create more opportunities and I need to build a business. And the opportunities for me are to build a company and then to bring in partner doctors and help them with the opportunities through the team that we've built, to coach them, to mentor them, to allow them to become partner doctors in the practice that they're in so that they can grow their net worth and not just grow their net worth by cutting crowns because that only goes so far until your shoulders and your wrists want to give out. There has to be a better way, and partner doctors are just more engaged in what's going on in the practice level. And for me, that is really where my fulfillment comes from. I like to build. I want to build shit. I want to build this company. I want to go as far as we can. I want to create the most opportunity for our doctors and our team members as I possibly can because that's really where my joy comes from.
Yeah, definitely. So, can you tell me about Vision Dental Partners? You're not like an Aspen Dental where every one of your practices says Vision Dental on it. So, can you talk about what you guys do and how you find practices or start practices if you do that?
Yeah, and we've done a little mix of both. So we've done some de novos. We've done 7 acquisitions, 2 de novos. Um, What do we do? Look, we're doing the same thing 98% of everybody else is doing. We're doing bread and butter dentistry. We do have doctors that place implants. We have doctors that do clear aligners. Like we're doing the same things that most everybody else is doing. I'm just obsessed with the brand side of that over the commoditized dentistry side of that. I think your Aspen dentals are a complete commodity because what do they plaster up on the front of every building they have? It's free exam and x-rays, $59 hygiene specials, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to play that game. Brand is how we fight that game. Brand is how we go against that model. Brand and soft skill development is how you become the best damn dentist that you possibly can be. And you become a freaking legend in your community, which is the opposite of a commodity where patients are paying for you for who you are and not just what you do. That is not the Aspen model. That is the Vision Dental Partner model. And that's not the model for most people. That is not the model for most groups. It's not the model for most practices. And it needs to be because we are headed down this commoditized route and it needs to slow the hell down.
Yeah, you've mentioned that saturation's kind of a myth because if you build a brand strong enough, and it's so true. I'd never thought about that. It kind of like flipped a switch with me where now I was like scared if I wanted to practice in like Orlando or something like that. I was like, you can't really touch it, you're gonna make no money. But now with that, you kind of give the mindset where it's like, if you're good enough at this, you can practice wherever you want.
You can practice wherever the hell you want. Does LeBron James still, like, there's a lot of really good NBA players. Does LeBron James still make money? Yeah. Does Steph Curry still do well in an NBA where there's a ton of great guards? Yeah.
Yep.
Why? Because they're the freaking best. And the best in dentistry are the ones that create brand. And if you just build brand, it doesn't matter if you're in downtown Manhattan, if you're in some saturated area in Orlando, if you're at Chicago, it doesn't matter. Just build brand and patients will come to you because of that. Like that is so undervalued. I just like it almost makes me sick how undervalued it is in the dental space, but it's the reason there's never been a greater opportunity because that's what dentists used to do. In 1988, it was just brand. It was you were going to go to that dentist because they were the dentist in your community or they were the closest dentist to your house. We kind of moved away from that, a little more commoditized model. That's why brand, there's never been a better opportunity, man. You go down to Orlando and you put the time and effort into building brand, anywhere you go, you will kill it.
100%. I mean, yeah, you see like Dr. Appa in New York. I'm sure there's a ton of dentists that can do the same work he does, but it's like that he's Dr. Appa that any like he's got a line out the door, can charge $4,000 for a crown,
There you
or
go.
probably double that, honestly.
There you go. And it's he's doing the same like look, he'll say like my crowns are bad. That's fine. Like but he's probably still not the best dentist on earth, but he does have the best brand and he's getting paid for who he is, not what he does. And that's why they'll pay the 4,000 or the 6,000 or the 8,000 or whatever the hell it is. And
Yeah.
versus, you know, you get guys that are just doing a bunch of MetLife crowns all day for $700 and, you know, act like they're doing big shit. They're not.
Yeah. So you said you went, was it 9 years from one to two practices? And then since then you've gone up to nine. So I was curious, what, like, do you think there was anything that you could have found, like, told yourself at the start now that would get you to two faster? Or is it just experience and like time and reps that gets you to feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah, I think it's experience, time, and reps. And I know that that's the cliche answer because it's true. I could have gone faster. There's no question in my mind I could have gone faster. Do I think the company would be as good as it is now if I had gone faster? No, I don't think so. It was really important to me that I tripled that first practice. Number one, because I don't ever want to ask somebody else in my company to do something that I haven't already done. I think that's important. When I go talk to a doctor who wants to sell their practice, and if they want to do a rollover equity deal where they're going to stay on with like a Dr. Randy Stauffer in Elkhart, Indiana, that we acquired his practice this year. The first conversation I had with him, I said, our objective is that we have to double this practice. Are you on board with that or not? And he said, yes, because I don't know how to do it myself. And I say, you know what? I've tripled or doubled multiple practices. I know exactly the blueprint. And it was like, light bulb goes off for him. Let's go do it. So I think it was really important that I'm able to prove that I've done it in the past, not just to other people, to myself. I have the blueprint, I have the confidence to do it. Number two, I acquired my second practice when I had zero debt. And that's where a lot of groups get into trouble. They go, they get into one, they go one practice, they take $1 million loan, they get another practice, another $1 million loan, a third practice, an $800,000 loan. They're almost $3 million in debt. They have three practices. They're 34 years old and going, the bank's going, you don't have a lot of cash. You got a little cash flow. We're not going to give you any more money for a while. You're a little over leveraged. I had no debt going into practice too. So I had also proven to the banks I've got a model that works. And I'm frugal enough and fiscally responsible enough that I've already paid down 1,300,000 or whatever the heck it was in debt in that time frame. I think it was in 7 years. So by year nine, I was debt free and I was off and running.
Yeah, and I that's what I've heard some other dentists say, where it's just they get it down with their first practice, but they don't have it down as much as they think they do. And they'll start a second one because like a new shiny thing, and then they're kind of underwater with it for months or
It's
years.
being a small business owner versus being an entrepreneur are not the same thing. Small business owner, single practice. You're the one coming in every day in that practice. You control the energy, you dictate what goes on. Now you add another location, you're no longer there all the time. You better have some people that are very good who are there all the time that are going to lead the way the same way you do if you think it's going to scale in the same way you did it with one practice. It just doesn't translate at 100%. You might get 90% at that second practice. The third practice, like you've got to be able to learn to delegate and be okay with the fact that that first practice is still going to be the one. If you're in that practice all the time, it's just going to be a little different. It's not going to be exactly the same. And that's why that entrepreneurial mindset is different than small business. Like small business owners really struggle when they're like, well, shit, it's not exactly the same. It's not going to be exactly the same because you aren't there. And that's okay, but you need to build a model that doesn't completely revolve around you being there all the time. That's an entrepreneur, not a small business owner. I've had to build a model that does not completely rely on me. And when you can do that, that's where you can scale. It's not just creating systems in one practice, it's creating systems that scale to other practices that don't revolve around you. Most don't understand that, or they just learn the hard way, which I did too. But then when you get to three or four or five practices, you also now have to build a management team. And guess what that does? It gets expensive. So now you've got debt, and you're now trying to take your best people, taking them out of the clinical setting, making them your management team. Like it's a hard game. So you've got to do that right because sometimes the best leaders are not the best clinicians, meaning the best producers, the best like it's a different skill set. Being the great leader does not always mean that you're the greatest producer, and just taking your best producers or your best front desk does not mean they need to go be on your management team. So like
Yeah.
it's a really it's a balancing act there that you got to really figure out, or you can really screw it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, so what do you think changes that's successful at a practice that does seven figures and what doesn't scale when you get to eight figures? Like what things do you have to change? Obviously, like you can't be in all the practices, but what other things did you maybe have to learn or switch around?
You've got to become number one, you've got to get very, I would say like for me personally, when you start talking eight figures and you're starting to, you better be very clear about your calendar. Like I've been very shitty at my calendar at times, and I was not doing the things that was going to be the best for my company or for the ROI for my company or for my team members. That's number one. Like you've got to be able to say no to some things that do not need your attention, and you've got to learn to delegate and be okay sometimes that other people are going to screw some shit up. Like that's fine. There is no expectation of perfection. Just do what I would do at an 80% level. I'm winning all day. I am so good with that. I think the thing that you have to do better as you get bigger is that you've got to be able to recruit people that align. And like you can sort of get away with that when you're smaller and like if I was in my own single practice, you can kind of hide some of those people, or you kind of learn very quickly faster that they might not align and they're a little bit of a cancer. It might take a little bit longer to figure that out at scale. We have over 100 and some odd team members now. Like somebody can come in and they can get through our recruiting process and they can come in and they can infect a practice and I might not know about it for 3 weeks. Now, I say 3 weeks. It might take a week versus if I was in that practice, it probably took me 10 minutes,
Yeah.
right? So you've really got to have some checks and balances around lack of alignment or people who are negative, toxic people who will really screw with your culture. And you got to move on from those people quick. So I think at scale it just gets a little bit more difficult
Right.
to sometimes figure out who those people are quickly. But when you do, you got to move on quickly. But I think our recruiting process has become a lot better where we're able to weed through a lot of those people.
Yeah. Do you think social media has helped you? Because I'm not sure if you're familiar with Alex Hormozy, but
Mhm.
he said once he got on social media, now there's so many people like, let me come work for you and stuff, and you kind of get way more reach, so you can get a way better selection of people.
Yes. Soft skills build brand, and brand is built on social.
Right.
And yes, I, you know, I think we had a stretch there where a number of hires that we had were all because of content. And the last doctor that just started for us was not because of content, but in the recruitment process, became engaged in our content and was like, holy shit, like you guys are what I've been looking for the last like 3 years. Like, where have you been? Or like, where have you been? Like, because I'm everywhere. So we find hygienists, we find front desk, we find assistants, and we find doctors through content. And they come to us and they're the most aligned. They've been watching content for 3 to 6 months. They know who we are. They know us, like us, trust us, and they're just the best people to put in there on day one. Like it is a game changer, no doubt about it. So I totally agree with Hormozy on that.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say I started. Well, I listen because I'm like on the way to school and everything. But influenced by Robert Cialdini, you said that's the number one book. Can you talk about why you think that book's so important for new dentists to read?
Yep. I mean, we talk soft skills, right? So, I think if you're a healthcare provider, you should care if your patients do the work that, let's go back even one step further. Patients need dental work, right? Like human beings need dental work. I've said this before, like go to a grocery store, spend 5 minutes in that grocery store and just follow people around and look at the crap that's in their cart. There's a lot of dental work that needs to be done. They're eating trash, they're drinking trash,
Mhm.
they're brushing once a day and saying they're doing it twice, all the things. If you know patients need dental work, you should care if they get to yes, right? We should be able to ethically influence those patients, not manipulate, influence. And people confuse those. And if you don't know the difference between those two, anybody listening, go to Google and Google the difference because there's a wide difference between those two. Learning about the 7 principles of influence will help you build soft skills. It will help you build confidence to help you get patients to yes. The more you can get patients to yes, the more work you get to do. The more work you get to do, actually, the better the relationships that you will build with those patients, number one. And number two, the faster you get at those skills and the better you get at those skills. So you build better relationships, you get faster, and you get better, all because you can lead people to yes. But if you think, especially as a young dentist, young hygienist, whatever, you're just going to come in because you got a little title on your name, a little title on your chest or whatever. It says doctor now. Patients are going to do the work. They're not. Now, authority matters. So, like, it's a piece, but they are not saying yes just because you're a dentist. There are 160 to 200,000 others that can do exactly the same thing you're doing. You are not special to anyone but your parents. And you've got to get them to the point where they're going to say yes to you so that you can actually develop the hard skills that everybody says are so important. And they are. Like, you should be an above average dentist clinically. If you're not, like, figure it out. But learning the 7 principles will help you develop those soft skills. And in my opinion, along with public speaking training and improv training, improv coaching, and learning influence will get you to the point where you can have the work patients need. It's important because people will try to throw in there like, well, you're trying to influence them just to do work. No, I want my patients to do the work that I know they need done. And if they're not, that's on me. I have a responsibility to get them to yes. I'm a healthcare provider. And when you can do that day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, you get better at the dentistry and you
Yeah.
build better relationships.
I saw on TikTok the other day, some girl posted and was like, any dentists out there, do I need a root canal on this? Like, I asked ChatGPT and they said they couldn't diagnose it, so I'm just wondering. And then I was just thinking, like, the dentist must have not been great at communicating. If you didn't, like, if they didn't explain what they were seeing on the x-ray or why you needed this, and you had to go to ChatGPT and TikTok. So I think it helps the patients out too if you're able to communicate better.
You're the expert. You're getting paid for your expertise, not your ability to do a crown. There is no sales tax on a crown. It's not a thing. You're getting paid for the service value. You're getting paid for your expertise. You should be able to communicate very clearly and not just with patient education. The patients don't want a 12-minute dissertation about what you're going to do with gutta percha and files and sodium hypochlorite and how you're going to do this and do that. It's just you either need the root canal or you not or you don't. And if you do, here's why. And here's what's going to happen if you don't do it.
Yeah.
And then here's the next step. And we should probably do this pretty damn urgently. And if it's not right now, I'm going to find time to get you back soon because you need to get this done. If somebody's leaving your practice and they're on ChatGPT, that's a problem. And
Yeah.
yet it happens all the time. And I know it happens all the time because patients come into my office all the time. And I've seen it for 18 years. They're like, well, this dentist said, you know, I may need to do this crown, but maybe I could wait. But maybe we could do a filling in the meantime, but maybe we could. I'm like, hold on. Like, okay, it's number 19. There's a huge lingual fracture. It's dark as hell on that lingual. There's an MODB amalgam in this thing. It's a first molar, so we use that for like 76% of our chewing efficiency. You should probably crown that thing before you crack it in half and end up with a $7,000 implant because it's unrestorable. So spend $1,800 on a crown or spend $7,000 on an implant. What do you want to do? I mean, to me, that's simple, but yet so many give them four different options.
Yeah.
We could do this, or you could do that, or you could do nothing, or whatever, but it's totally up to you. Well, they're not the damn expert. Help get them and help guide them, help lead them to the best option for them.
Yeah. 100%. You, I was curious if you were graduating in May 2026, what are the three things that you would do to increase, like just to maximize your career starting out?
Ooh, that's so good. I think we just touched on it. I think the three things that I would do if I was graduating in May of 2026, and this like super excites me because I wish I could go back to May of 2007 and I could tell myself this. I would number one, I would have Cialdini's book so down pat, and I would have specific examples of how I'm going to incorporate those seven principles into whatever practice I go into. And I would be regurgitating that in a mirror so that I can see my facial expressions, so that I can see my body language when I can say that. I can see the eye contact, because if you can't have eye contact with yourself when you're talking to a mirror with case presentation, you sure as hell are not going to be able to with a patient. And number two, I would be on YouTube and I would be getting public speaking training. I would be learning how to be in front of an audience of one because your patient is an audience of one. Every operatory you walk into, you are on stage. You need to be able to have and get an emotional response from that patient. People don't buy dentistry, they buy relationships.
100%.
So you need to be able to elicit an emotional response from that patient, either about you or whatever it is, but you need to understand you are in a on a stage with one person in that audience. And they need to be able to remember, like the best public speakers can go speak to a crowd of 5,000 and 3,000 of those people remember them a month later. You need to be able to do that with that one single human being. And number three, if I could do this all over again, I would have spent the little bit of money in whatever community I was in. I was in Fort Wayne. I would have gone and I would have taken like a 3 session improv class. And I would have learned to just like think on my feet, think on my feet, charisma, like just be energetic, have charisma, think of it because you're going to get asked questions that you've never been asked before. You got to be able to think on your feet right away. You're gonna until you have the experience and the scar tissue build up that like right now I could go into any operatory, nobody's gonna ask me anything I haven't heard 1,000 times, and I have a distinct answer. It's very clear, it's very influential. This is what the answer is. But in July of 2007, I didn't have that.
Yeah,
I would be learning to think on my feet because dentistry is done with this. I know people think it's done with this, but it's this and this that gets you to use these.
right.
And so I'd be reading influence and I would have specific examples of how I can use reciprocity and scarcity and social proof and all of that. I probably would just be on YouTube and I would spend 20 hours just like learning from the best public speakers how to be better. And then when I was out in practice, I would spend a little bit of money and I would get into like a little improv class for a couple sessions and I would just learn from that.
I like that it wasn't implant CE and root canal CE. And do you think people overemphasize those things?
Yeah.
Well, because yeah, if you know how to do an implant, but you can't get anyone to get an
You
implant.
can't get anybody to do it.
Yeah,
Like that's it's okay, and that's a phenomenal point actually, Jack. So here's the other thing that I run into a lot: high debt in with dentists because they went out and they bought a CEREC machine because they're like it's going to double my new patients. Well, guess what it doesn't do? Double your new patients. And guess what it also doesn't do? It didn't lower your lab bill. And guess what it also didn't do? It didn't increase your case acceptance for crowns. And guess what? It's still the human being. It's just as humans, we can use the equipment to be efficient. We can do all of those things, but it's still the human being. And just because you can go learn to slap metal in somebody's mouth does not mean those patients want you to be the one to do it. You're still on stage. You still need to be the one that can get them to yes. And when you can be that person with every single patient that you see, day after day after day, you'll get very good at it. And yeah, I mean, CE is fine. Like it can help you build some hard skills, and that's great. But again, if you're not appropriately marketing, nobody's coming in. And two, if you can't get people to say yes, you're not doing any work. So yeah, you better get really good at those things.
yeah. The field, I feel like generally has been super pessimistic towards just dentistry in general. So it kind of that's all we hear is a lot of pessimistic people. So that's why I've been trying to reach out to more people that are really optimistic in the field. Why do you think that is? And do you think it's a lot of it's true or is a lot of it just like BS and it's still a great time to go into dentistry?
I think there's never been a greater opportunity because I really do think there's so much commoditization that if you can build brand and stand out and have incredible soft skills, you can build a phenomenal practice. Now, it doesn't mean that that's by December of 2026, but like my thing is I can take a new grad and by year 5, I can have them kicking the ass of everyone else they graduated with because I have the blueprint. But it's soft skill driven. It's brand driven. Um, I mean, does it mean that dentistry is phenomenal? I mean, dentistry's hard. Dentistry's hard. Like people, look, I'm a third generation dentist. I still had no freaking idea what I was getting into. Zero. Zero idea what I was getting into. It's hard. But yet it's really fun. The journey is fun. But the days are tough. But if you can have a long-term mindset, if you can be building on day one, you should be thinking about year 5. In year 5, you should be thinking about year 10. On day one, you shouldn't be thinking about week 3 because it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, just, you're going to be drinking through a fire hose for 2 years, and that's okay. And it's more mentally taxing and physically taxing than what most realize. Um, but it is more commoditized than ever. It is more PE driven than ever. There is a lot of consolidation happening. The dental space is going to look very different 10 years from now than it does now. Um, but brand wins at scale. And that's where the opportunity comes from. If you're just going to do what everybody else is doing, I would be pessimistic. I'm brutally honest about that. If I was just going to go in, I was going to throw on my white coat and do what everybody else is doing, I would be pessimistic because margins are shrinking. Insurance is like paying less than ever. They're denying more claims than ever. Dentistry is very much run by MBAs now. Um, but I'm wildly optimistic because I understand because it finally flipped for me after 500 hours of Gary Vee's content that brand fucking wins
Hmm.
and poof, that's the game. I was just building brand 15 years ago. I just didn't call it that. I wasn't
Yeah.
smart enough to figure out what the hell I was doing, but I was doing it. Now I have a real good blueprint. I've got, the correct terminology to back that up, and that's what we do. So I'm wildly optimistic actually.
Yeah, that's a good thing to hear because also a lot of I'm only a D2, but the D4 year, even now we still get messages. All you hear from are Aspen recruiters and Heartland recruiters. So
Yeah.
you think it's either that or the guy in your neighborhood that's a solo office, but I feel like there's
Yep.
a lot of group offices in between that can still you can still either get equity or have like good mentorship coming out, but they're just not heard of as much.
They're not heard of as much. And I think, the Aspens and the Heartlands, they've got specific people who get paid to come recruit dental students, right? Like they get their bonus for bringing y'all in and that's what they do. And then they put you on the hamster wheel for 3 years and they spit you out and they're like, now you can go to private practice because we're going to go get a new dental student. Um, I think just a lot of the groups are, there's different models out there. Like not everybody wants dentists with equity. Not everybody, I mean, everybody's got a different mindset around that. But I do think that, the single practice model, admittedly, uh, it's tough. I mean, if I was sitting right now at 32 single practice owner, still optimistic. But with an understanding that by 42, I probably will have had to make a decision on what is the best route for the practice. Who am I going to partner with for the next 10 years? Because I just think the consolidation is so rapid and it's going to be so rapid over the next 10 years. I think the small practice valuations will end up getting pinched a little bit because of that. There'll be more consolidation of the mid-sized groups up into the bigger groups and with private equity. That doesn't have to be a bad thing, by the way. Like I'm completely agnostic when it comes to PE. There's good and there's bad, just like there's shitty single practices and there's really good single practices. Like private practice does not always mean good, by the way. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of really not great dentists out there. Um, but I do think that there are some very good groups that understand um, there is a better route. And that's really my objective every day. Like I wake up every day for our partner doctors. I'm building this for our partner doctors and I want more partner doctors. That's actually the model that I'm building is find practices doing 500 to $700,000. Go recruit a younger dentist who's equity like-minded and let's go quadruple that practice together and grow your net worth
Yeah.
as a
That
partner.
sounds yeah. And I think that's what a lot of dentists coming out want. So
Mhm.
do you think that I've heard that also before that PE and the bigger groups are leaning towards group consolidation versus
Yeah.
solo practice acquisition? Do you think that's a good thing for younger dentists coming out because they're not competing with private equity to buy these single dentist practices? Or not competing as much, I should say.
What do you mean by is it a good thing for younger doctors coming out? Go a little deeper on that.
Just like people that want to own these solo doctor practices, now they're not bidding against a private equity firm that can, you
Gotcha.
know,
Yeah, it's I'd say yes and no. I mean, I think at a single practice level, there's been some overpayment. This 6, 7, 7.5x EBITDA. I think private equity is finding, oh shit, it's hard to create margin and
yeah.
it's like they're not getting the return they thought they were going to get. So I think that's where they're going, yeah, but if we buy the group that already has like some systems in place, there's less lift on their end. I think it's a better value for them. Um, but I think the problem you're going to have at the single practice level is a lot of these brokers are delulu when it comes to valuations. Like we still go in and we'll find practices that are doing 600 and the broker's telling the doctor, well, you should get 710 for that practice. You're like, the practice is worth 560, and then the practice sits there for a year. Like, so there's still some of that going on. Um, it's not all of them, but that still does happen. So I think, it's going to take a little time for those valuations to come down, but it's going to happen. Money
Yeah.
just costs too much, and they're finding out that those numbers that they've been paying for a long time, it's just hard to create a lot of margin when you're
Yeah.
paying that much.
Yeah, I worked for a pediatric dentist in Frederick, Maryland, which is like a small town. He was killing it though. He was doing like 7 million a year because he owned a orthodontic office next door as well. He said he was getting offers for like $17 million for the practice, and it was probably worth it, I feel like. But he said he didn't want to sell because you'd have to stay there and work. But I mean, that's just
Yeah, I
crazy.
mean, and the offer is always like the details always matter, right? I mean, it's like, well, it was 12 of that up front and six of it was earn out that they had to hit. Like, I mean, you just never know.
Right.
But for sure, I mean, if you're looking at $7 million, if they were running, I, I mean, on seven, who knows? I mean, they could have had 1.5 million of it. I mean, that seems like a really high number to me, but it doesn't completely surprise me. Like it's, and I think that's where private equity is now finding like we've paid these crazy numbers. How do we get return on this? And I think that game, if it's not slowing down, because I don't think it's cooled off quite yet. I think we'll see it cool off a bit, and you're going to see more of the groups that get rolled up as
Yeah.
opposed to the one-offs. I mean, like Heartland just acquired like that 30 practice group in Florida. I mean, I just think you're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah.
Is
And
it
I've heard,
good? I don't know. Is it like better for the students coming out? Because the problem is still like, if you're 28, 29, 30 years old, does it make sense to go acquire a practice doing 1.5 million? Because the reality is that doctor's still probably not going to sell it to you for 80%. They're still going to want, even if it's a 5x multiple on a quarter million of EBITDA, you're still going to go pay 1.3 million, 1.4 million. So like, it's just a lot of debt, and then you add that on to, by the way, in like 1986, homes didn't cost nearly as much as they do per capita or per income capita as they do now. Um, a freaking ass used car now costs $60,000. So I mean, you're 1.35 million in a practice. Your house costs 500,000. And by the way, you and your spouse have two cars that you got 50,000 in debt on. You're $2 million in debt at 33. Like, what is the? Oh, and by the way, you've got 500,000 in
yeah.
student loans. So you're 2.5 million in debt, right? So like, it's just all
Yeah.
things to consider. To me, um, I don't think that's the best way to go anymore. I really
Hmm.
don't.
So
I
with
think there's better options.
Yeah, with the partner, you were saying the solo practices, they're going to try to be looking for partnerships in the future. Is that just to like reduce overhead, have someone to be still keeping the office open when you want to go on vacation so you don't have to close it down, things like that?
For partners,
Yeah.
no, that's because I want equity partners who are physically, financially, mentally bought into that practice because that's where we get the best leadership. That's where we have doctors that give a shit what kind of ROI we're getting from Susie Q at the front desk. And like it's a different mindset between a partner doctor and an associate dentist. An associate dentist walks out at 5:01 and they're like, "Peace out, I'm going to the golf course." A partner doctor just gives a rat's ass about that P&L a little bit more. They're putting that patient in that walked in at 4:30 with a broken tooth onto the schedule for a crown prep that day, and they're staying until 5:30 to get that thing done. Um, I want partner doctors because they're just way more involved mentally,
Yeah.
physically, financially. They have a vested interest in making sure that practice is going to double and triple in size. They have a different mindset around what they want out of life. There's nothing wrong with doctors who just want to be associates their whole life. I have no issue with that. But what I really want are the doctors who are like-minded and aligned and go, if I create a ton of value for my patients, I deserve to get paid for that. And you do, because that's how the universe works. It's like the law of money, right? but then we're also growing your net worth through the value that you're creating for the practice. Because if you're part of a group that's growing, if you buy in at a single practice valuation, the day you sign on the dotted line, you're already worth probably double because you're getting the group valuation. And now, as I grow the group and we grow the practice, think about what that does for your net worth.
Yeah. And
Exponentially grows.
that's what dentists, or at least dental students that I've talked to, like, we all want ownership in something. You don't want to just be working for someone else because you're building up their net worth. And then you have nothing to sell at the end also.
Yeah, that's the only way you're going to make. I mean, I say the only way you're going to make, like, the way you're going to truly grow your net worth is through equity. Truly grow your net worth is through equity. And I just think it's hard when we just went through a model where you're $2.5 million in debt, but hey, you own the practice. And by the way, you're also recruiting on your own on Fridays and Saturdays and Tuesday nights and Thursdays during your lunch break. And every little problem that goes wrong on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. is your freaking problem. There's no team to support you. I just think that model is it's just going to the wayside because it's expensive. I think the lifestyle around being a partner doctor instead of a solo practitioner, I wouldn't want to be a solo practitioner. I don't want, like, we have an HR team. Like Taylor and Jason in recruiting, they're awesome. I don't have to recruit. I recruit doctors, so I have the doctors weeded through. So by the time they make it to me, it's broken down by, a third of them make it through to me, and then I get to go have conversations with the like-minded ones, and that's awesome. Like that brings me so much energy because I get the people who are just like all in it. And I don't want to be spending my time recruiting assistants and hygienists and front desk all the time. I mean, they're great, but there are teams that can do that for us.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a model that really makes a lot of sense. And I think it's where dentistry's grown up a little bit. Like it's a different model than my grandfather and my dad had. And it doesn't mean it's for everybody, but I think it's a little bit of a matured model. And I think it's the absolute best way to grow your net worth over time at scale.
Yeah. So when did you realize as you were growing, like, oh, I can't do this and do HR. I need to bring someone on for that. Like, do you stretch yourself too thin and then bring people on, or do you kind of prepare for the growth by bringing people on, knowing you're gonna maybe lose money initially and then grow?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you stretch that? Initially, I stretch thin because I think you have to. I think you have to run a little lean. You got to duct tape some shit together. You take two boxes, you duct tape them together, and you just keep going. And because you're just trying to create cash flow. It's cash flow. Like the sexy term is EBITDA, right? Like everybody just wants to talk about EBITDA, EBITDA. Like cash flow is really what matters. And you need to be bringing in cash flow. You need to be stacking cash. You need to be doing all of those things. So you have to find people who are okay with that. And I did early on. Like, I had some people in my single practice that were good with 11 and 12-hour days. And that's what we did. And that's how you take a single practice with a 34-year-old and push it to $4 million and do all of those things. And you've got to have those kind of people. Now, today, we're built the opposite way. It's a little harder, I think, for us. And, I'm sure some people would argue with me about this. I just didn't want to do that again. So I kind of pre-build us to really be ready for like 3 to 6 to 8 more locations. So we're a little pre-built right now. We'll have to add maybe 1 or 2 positions, but I don't have to go like double the size of my team. So um, we're probably a little fat and happy right now on the support team side. But once we go do what we're going to do over the next probably 13 to 14 months, we'll be right where we should be.
Awesome. All right, I got one more question for you. I saw you said you spent $25,000 for one day with Jay Geyer. Can you
Yep.
talk about what he did and how that helped you and how it's kind of returned its investment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the $25,000 I spent with Jay Geyer, I've always responded to leaders like Jay. I think there are three people, and then I'll answer your question because it's a really good question. But there are three people or three things that have had the most influence in my career. Number one, my dad. and not even because of when I was in practice, but he's the reason I wanted to be a dentist. When I was 7, 8, 9 years old, everywhere we went, my little league games, my basketball games, to Pizza Hut on a Friday night, like it didn't matter where we went, he knew freaking everybody. And those relationships, like I was just like, how the hell do you know everybody, man? It's because he was a dentist. He was the local legend in our community, and he had just built incredible brand. He was such a good guy with relationships, and I respect the hell out of him so much for that. And I learned a lot from him in that regard. It's what made me want to go into this people business. And number two, I would say Cialdini's book on influence. So like not a person, but a thing. And I still read that damn thing like at least every 6 months, if not more. And number three, I would say Jay Geyer because of his no nonsense, no bullshit, no frills, get to the point, and it's all about execution, action, and accountability and self awareness. You could probably add Gary Vee onto a fourth. Like I've done some things with some team members of his now. Like from a personal brand standpoint, like we're working with like David Rock, who D Rock, who helped build Gary's brand for 10 years. Unbelievable human being, by the way. Like I don't know if I've met anybody in the last 5 years that's a better human being than D Rock. Um, but with Jay, he started out the meeting. I'll never forget this. I'm sitting there drinking coffee. And I think at the time, like I don't even think I was drinking black coffee yet. I was like 36. I think I was still drinking like vanilla lattes, like a 16-year-old. And my now wife like started making fun of me shortly thereafter about that. And she's like, you should probably not be drinking vanilla lattes. So anyway, I'm sitting there drinking this, and I remember the start of the meeting, and Jay said, I have to know this before we start because if we can't get past this, like we will spend the entire day on this if we need to. And he said, do you have any addictions? Gambling, porn, like obsessive amounts of spending. Yeah, that was like how we started this. And it was like, if you have any addictions that are going to keep you from being the best version of yourself, we need to talk about them for 8 hours today and we have to get you over them. And I went, no, no, no. He's like, okay, now we can start. And it was like the most no nonsense, just because these are things that hold a lot of people back behind the scenes, by the way. And it was like, now it's like, okay, now we need to get over your own bullshit. What do you have bias around? So we started going into things and it was like, everybody has bias. Like I learned that day what true value creation meant in the dental space, in the business world, in life, in relationships. Again, like 20, some people look at $25,000 for a day and like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, but I've gotten a 15x, I've more than 14x my, like literally 14x my company since that day. I mean, like, what kind of return is that? I mean, you're talking like ridiculous amount. So, um, we talked a lot about calendar. He introduced me to a thing that day, get paid for who you are, not what you do. That probably was one of the biggest light bulbs ever. I may have heard it from him before that, but that day we really sat there and understood you're never going to make money and do what you want to do in life and get to where you want to go in anything if you're just getting paid for what you do.
Yeah.
It's who you are. It's brand, 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 brand. And I mean, those things seem so simple in the rear view mirror, um, but they're not.
Yeah.
The action around those things and the way that you have to be so intentional at scale for days, months, years to make that happen. Um, it takes a lot of work. It's not a
Yeah.
quick process. So I think I've just always responded to that kind of leadership. I need somebody who's in my face and says, "You are capable." I totally agree. You're capable of amazing things, huge things. You have huge dreams, huge goals. But if you can't hold yourself accountable, and if you can't be self-aware enough when you look in the mirror to do the shit you need to do, good luck. And a lot of it was just talking about that. And I think that's where, Gary Vee mirrors a lot of that. That's why I'm so attracted to all the stuff he does and people around him. Um, but that day was worth, I could have paid 4 times that and it still wouldn't have batted an eye.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think even if, well, I'm sure like spending a whole day with someone like that's got to be great. But even if it's things you hear, like hearing it from someone directly will make you take action 1,000 times more. Because I can scroll and I can hear things, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna do them, you know? So maybe it's doing that requires you to take action, and then from there you could just like spring off.
And it's you hit the head nail on the head. It's just action.
Yeah.
Whatever it was in that time, whatever it was, I had been with Scheduling Institute, their 5X program. I had done other things. Like it was just exactly that. It was that day that the switch flipped, that it was all about me. Like, yes, team is super important. Like, you can't discount it, but like the Warriors don't win championships and be a dynasty without Steph, right? Without Jordan, the Bulls are not a six-time NBA champ. Like, you've got to have the leader. You got to have the one doing the things. You got to have the one that puts in the work, that sets the expectation and the bar and holds everybody else accountable. And, you can't be a people pleaser if you want to be a real leader and you want to be the one doing that. And that means that sometimes it's going to rub people the wrong way, and you've got to be okay with that. And a lot of younger dentists are not okay with that. They want to make sure everybody's happy, and that doesn't work. Um, Leadership is tough. It's another whole conversation, but it took me, I've said, it took me 500 hours of Gary's content for it to finally flip the switch, where it was like, personal brand, dude. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Where have I been? It just takes either I'm really stupid or really smart. I'm not sure, but it's like either takes me way too long because I'm really dumb, but then I'm like smart enough to have it finally click. I don't know. I'm somewhere on the spectrum, but it's like it's just action. You've got to go
Yeah.
execute. You can talk until you're blue in the face, but you've got to be able to have people around you that get you to take action.
100%.